sure, family and friends, it is with great sadness that I stand before you today. Less than a year and a half ago, I stood here alongside my Uncle Lewis at the funeral of my father, his beloved younger brother, and my own experience tells me that the sense of grief that we are starting to feel now will expand and solidify in the coming weeks and months, with every reminder of the man we have lost. Lewis was born in Dublin in the late 1930s. He spoke fondly of his childhood and how much he loved and was loved by my grandparents, Sam and Sissy, of blessed memory. It was clear from a young age that he was gifted. He described it as feeling unusual. He said that his parents knew he was unusual and unusually clever, and that they protected him and always made him feel secure. He spoke of growing up in a home filled with culture, where his father, my handy Grandpa Sam, rigged up the radios that could be heard throughout the home. Thus, he was able to hear music and the opera that he came to adore, whichever room he was in. It was in this loving home that Lewis developed his appreciation of the arts. His cousins remember sitting in the audience in the conservatory at the back of the house as the young multi-hyphenate directed and performed plays for their delight. Uncle Lewis was an excellent pupil. He followed George Bernard Shaw to Wesley College, Dublin, where he became head boy. Certainly the first Jewish head boy of this Methodist school, very possibly the last. He studied medicine at Trinity College, Dublin. Since the late 16th century, Trinity has awarded scholarships to exceptional undergraduates. For the first couple of centuries, Trinity scholars were all classicists. Trinity's history records that in 1926, Samuel Barclay Beckett became the first Trinity scholar of modern languages. In 1960, Lewis Howard Sevitt was the first Trinity scholar of medicine. Lewis won every medical prize in every year that he studied. He loved his medical training, and throughout his career he referred back to that time and his tutors there. Trinity College was the great place for an unusually clever man to be nurtured and taught by unusually clever clinicians. Arriving in London in the 1960s, Lewis started at the Hammersmith Hospital, which was the premier postgraduate medical school at the time. He continued his evolution as a physician and became known and widely respected as an outstanding clinician among a sea of researchers. Over the years, Lewis taught many people and influenced many more. His quiet excellence and his clinical confidence affected everyone he met. Sir Keith Peters, former Regius Professor of Physics at Cambridge, claimed that everything he knew about clinical medicine he learned from Lewis. He became a consultant at the Hilling Hospital, where he developed and raised money for the postgraduate program there. Extending his gentle influence beyond patients and young doctors, Lewis made a huge contribution to the modernisation of the Hillingdon and how the hospital managed acute medicine. Doctors always sought Lewis's advice, and he was always glad to give it. His house jobs were highly competitive, as his reputation as a teacher and mentor continued to grow. Lewis was known for his meticulous adherence to rules of client confidentiality. He was always charming, but impeccably discreet. If other doctors were struggling with a diagnosis or a treatment plan, they would turn to Lewis to help them resolve their riddle. In private practice, he aspired to being always affable and available. I'm sure there's not a person here who hasn't witnessed Lewis gracefully withdraw to answer a phone call and talk to a patient. There was never an apology, for there was never one necessary. He was simply, truly, a dedicated physician. Lewis enjoyed his professional success, and he loved the opera and often bought extra tickets so that he could enjoy it among friends. We may never know how many students he helped. He was as modest about this side of his life as he was generous with the people that needed his assistance. Every year he threw sumptuous parties in the summer and for New Year's. He was a creature of habit, returning for 46 years to the same beach in Mykonos, where he was greeted by the locals as an old friend. Lewis's life was marked by deep and enduring friendships. When he first moved to London, he shared a flat in Chiswick for 20 years with Lawrence. He met Rosemary in 1964 as young doctors, and they were devoted friends from that day forwards. They shared a love of opera and many holidays to Mykonos and other cheeky jaunts around Europe, always enjoying the finest that the world had to offer. Every day Lewis Lewis would call Rosemary up just to find out where she was and what she was up to. Theirs was an extraordinary friendship that spanned decades. And Paolo also loved and was loved by my Uncle Lewis. Friends for over 30 years, they were devoted to each other, and we all witnessed the depth of Paolo's devotion over these last difficult months as he cared for and tended to Lewis, while Lewis understood better than anyone what was happening. We are all heartbroken that Lewis is gone, but none can be more heartbroken than those that spend every day caring for him and loving him. Lewis loved and was loved by his family. My own father looked up to him as a big brother, but also often shared with us the enormous respect he had for him as a doctor. All the cousins knew that Lewis was exceptional, but exceptional in a way that was never forbidding or distant. Whenever any of the cousins asked me about Lewis, it was always with a smile, as if just asking the question conjured a joyful memory. As a child, what most impressed me about Lewis, apart from his tickly moustache, was his impeccable sense of timing. He always showed up for the Passover Seder just as we were serving the food. He arrived after Yom Kippur just in time to break the fast with us. If he visited on a Saturday afternoon, there was just the right amount of time for a cup of tea and a nap before he was called away to see a patient. We will soon recite the Jewish memorial prayer, which famously speaks not of the departed, but is a long recitation of the ways in which God is great and sanctified. In the expression of our devotion to God at this time of unfathomable sadness, we commend the soul of the departed to heaven. I think Lewis might have been okay with that. He wouldn't have wanted a big fuss made over him. He was justly proud of his life as a physician, a friend, a son, and a brother. It is my hope that our prayers today and this year will see him reunited with those he lost and loved, and that for those of us who loved him and who remain here, his memory will always be a blessing.